The moon was resting high in the sky, casting a silver glow across the sleepy field. A soft breeze drifted through the tall grass, carrying with it the scent of lavender and the hush of crickets singing their lullaby. In the middle of the meadow, a tiny mouse named Elara wrapped her small blanket tighter around her shoulders and gazed upward. Tonight, the stars seemed to shimmer with a secret, as if they were whispering of a place hidden far beyond ordinary eyes. Elara's whiskers twitched when she noticed a faint golden glow moving gently at the horizon. It wasn't the glow of fireflies, nor the light of the moon. This was something steadier, warmer, almost like a lantern leading the way. She felt a calm tug in her heart, and knowing that this light was calling her somewhere special. With soft little steps, she padded through the meadow, her paws sinking into the cool grass, until she reached a small bridge woven of twigs and glowing moss. The bridge arched over a brook that sparkled as though stars had slipped down into the water. On the other side, the golden glow pulsed brighter, and Elara felt her heart beating slowly in rhythm with it. She stepped across the bridge, her ears filled with the gentle murmur of the water below. When she reached the far side, she gasped softly. Rising in the distance was a castle, tall and graceful, with towers made of pale stone that shimmered like moonlight. Every window glowed with a warm amber light, and the air around it was wrapped in a hush so deep and comforting, it felt like the entire world was exhaling into rest. Elara had never seen such a place before. The castle seemed alive, breathing softly in the night. The gates weren't tall or frightening but rounded, like an embrace, and as she drew closer, they opened with a sigh, as though welcoming her. She stepped carefully onto the smooth path, lined with glowing lanterns that swayed gently, as if humming a lullaby only lanterns could sing. Inside the courtyard, the hush grew even deeper. Flowers with soft silver petals bent slightly as if bowing to her, releasing a fragrance so soothing that her whiskers tingled with calm. The air carried no hurry, no sharpness, only the gentlest presence, like being wrapped in the coziest blanket. Elara realized she had found something extraordinary. At the very center of the courtyard stood a fountain, not of rushing water, but of glowing mist. It rose in quiet spirals, drifting upward to paint the sky with pale ribbons of light. And as she leaned closer, the mist whispered softly, "Welcome, little traveler. You have found the castle of quiet dreams." Elara's eyes widened, her tiny paws holding her blanket close. She whispered back, though she wasn't sure if her voice was carried on her breath or her heart, "What is this place?" The fountain shimmered, its glow spreading across the stones. "This is where all the world's dreams are born. Gentle dreams, soft dreams, the kind that carry every creature into peaceful slumber. Tonight, you are invited to walk its halls." Elara's little heart filled with warmth. She nodded slowly, her eyelids already feeling heavier, as if the castle itself was weaving drowsiness into her very fur. She followed the glowing path deeper inside, the hush wrapping around her like a soft lullaby. And so, her adventure in the castle of quiet dreams was just beginning. Elara stepped gently onto the cobblestone path that wound deeper into the castle. Her paws made no sound, as if the stones themselves were too polite to echo. The air smelled faintly of honey and soft rain, and she felt lighter with every step. Above her, the towers reached high, but instead of being sharp and grand, they curved softly, like folded wings, keeping the night sky tenderly cradled between them. As she walked, the lanterns lining the path glowed brighter, one after the other, as though they were guiding her. Each flicker carried a hum, a tone so low and gentle that it brushed against her ears like a breeze. Elara realized the castle wasn't silent, it was singing, but its song was woven of quietness itself. The hush was alive, filled with the kind of silence that wrapped the heart in safety. She reached the grand doorway to the castle. It didn't creak or rumble open. Instead, it drifted apart like a curtain made of starlight. Inside, Elara gasped softly. The first hall shimmered with calmness. The walls glowed as though they were spun from pale moonstone, and tapestries of soft clouds drifted across them, moving slowly as if someone had painted the sky onto silk. A velvet rug stretched forward, the color of twilight, leading deeper into the halls. Elara padded carefully, her blanket trailing behind her. She noticed doors along the hall, each one glowing with a faint light. Curious, she touched the nearest one with her paw, and the door opened silently. Inside was a chamber filled with cushions piled high like gentle mountains. They were made of soft fabrics in every shade of dream, pale lilac, quiet blue, and warm golden cream. A little family of hedgehogs lay nestled together among the cushions, all fast asleep, their tiny breaths rising and falling like waves. At the center of the room was a floating crystal, glowing softly, releasing threads of golden light that seemed to wrap around the hedgehogs like invisible blankets. Elara stepped back, not wanting to disturb them. She realized the rooms were not for her to enter, but for every creature in the world who needed rest. The castle wasn't just a place, it was a home for dreams themselves. Each chamber cared for someone, somewhere, giving them the peace they longed for. She padded on, her little paws quiet, and peeked into another room. This chamber held a giant silver cradle, swaying gently though no hands touched it. A group of owlets rested there, their feathers ruffling softly as they dreamed. Overhead, stars twinkled across the ceiling, shining down with a glow that seemed to cradle them even further. Elara's heart swelled with tenderness. As she continued down the hall, she met her first companion. A soft voice came from behind one of the glowing doors. "Are you new here?" it asked, calm and kind. Elara turned and saw a small fox step out, his fur glowing faintly with the same silvery light that filled the hall. His eyes were gentle, carrying the shimmer of stars. "I'm Callan," he said with a small bow of his head. Elara smiled shyly. "I'm Elara. I just found my way here." Callan nodded as if he'd been expecting her. "The castle always knows who needs it. Sometimes it calls us here when our hearts are restless, so we can remember what peace feels like." Elara tilted her head. "Do you stay here?" The fox's tail swayed slowly, like a pendulum guiding sleep. "I help guide visitors to the right hall. The castle has many wings, each filled with a different kind of dream. Some are soft and cozy, like the cradle room. Others are filled with gentle stories that play themselves, so sleepers can listen while they drift away." He gestured toward a wide staircase at the end of the hall. "Come, I'll show you more." Elara followed him, her paws sinking into the velvety rug. As they climbed, the hush seemed to deepen, as if the castle itself was listening. They reached a landing that opened into a circular hall, where glass windows stretched from floor to ceiling. Through them, Elara saw the night sky, but not as she had ever known it. The stars here were larger, glowing brighter, some drifting close as if they had stepped down from the heavens to peek inside. Callan's voice was hushed, almost like he didn't want to wake them. "This is the Hall of Starlit Slumber. The stars themselves watch over the castle, lending their glow to keep the dreams safe." Elara pressed her tiny paws to the glass, her whiskers twitching in awe. The stars shimmered back, almost like they were smiling at her. She felt her heart fill with the same glow, her breathing slowing, her body growing softer with calm. The fox sat beside her. "There are many places here, Elara. The quiet garden, where flowers hum lullabies. The whispering library, where books read themselves aloud in voices as gentle as clouds. And deeper still, the dream tower, where the keeper of dreams paints the skies with colors for morning." Elara's ears perked. "Can I see them all?" she asked, her voice small but eager. Callan's eyes glimmered kindly. "Yes," he said softly. "But remember, this castle is not about rushing. Every step here is slow, every path is gentle. You will see everything in its own time, when your heart is ready to wander." Elara nodded, and as she sat with Callan, gazing out at the soft, glowing stars, she realized her journey had only just begun. The castle seemed to sigh with her, wrapping her in its quiet embrace. Elara followed Callan's soft steps down a smaller hallway that curved like the inside of a seashell. The hush grew even deeper here, the kind of quiet that makes you feel safe and close to sleep. At the end of the hallway, an archway opened into the quiet garden. Elara's eyes widened. The garden stretched wide, bathed in moonlight that filtered through a ceiling made not of stone, but of glass so clear it looked like the sky itself had been lowered just for them. Stars glittered above, and the moon's glow poured down like liquid silver. Every flower, every leaf, every blade of grass shimmered faintly as though dusted with dreams. She stepped onto a winding path of smooth white stones. On either side, flowers opened slowly, petals glowing with soft colors, pale lavender, gentle peach, and sleepy blues. As the petals opened, each flower released a quiet hum, low and warm, blending together like the notes of a lullaby. The music wasn't sharp or loud, it was steady, like the rhythm of a rocking cradle. Elara's little nose twitched at the scents in the air, honey, dew, and a sweetness that reminded her of freshly baked bread. She felt her body grow looser, her paws lighter. She looked up and saw that the branches of tall willows were swaying gently even though there was no wind, their leaves whispering stories in hushed tones. Callan led her to a small pond in the garden. The surface was smooth as glass, reflecting the stars above, but when Elara leaned closer, she gasped softly. Instead of her reflection, she saw pictures floating across the water, tiny dream scenes drifting one after the other. A little bear cub snuggled in a blanket, dreaming of honey, a young bird curled in a nest, dreaming of flying, a child, tucked under a quilt, smiling as their dreams carried them to magical places. "The pond shows the dreams blooming tonight," Callan explained gently, his voice like a whisper carried on feathers. "Every dream begins in this garden. The flowers open, they hum, and the dreams drift like seeds, carried to sleepers everywhere." Elara dipped her paw into the water, and the ripples made the dream scenes shimmer and scatter like stars. One ripple floated outward, carrying with it a golden glow that rose from the pond and drifted into the air like a glowing feather. Elara watched, her heart swelling, as the glow floated up through the glass ceiling, slipping into the sky to find its dreamer. She turned to Callan, her eyes wide. "It's so beautiful. It's like the whole world rests here." Callan nodded, his tail brushing against the stones. "The world does rest here. Every night, the castle of quiet dreams makes sure no heart feels forgotten. Each petal, each star, each shimmer is a promise of gentle sleep." As they continued along the path, Elara noticed small creatures tending to the flowers. Tiny moths with wings like lace fluttered slowly, brushing their wings across petals to coax them open. A sleepy turtle in a mossy shell watered the roots with drops of moonlight gathered in his bowl. Little fireflies drifted in pairs, carrying bits of stardust to sprinkle over the blooms. Everyone worked in slow, careful motions, as though hurrying had no place here. Elara felt herself growing calmer with every step. She curled her blanket closer around her shoulders, and her eyelids fluttered as the lullaby of flowers swayed in the air. Callan noticed and smiled. "The garden has a way of reminding us how small we are, and how held we are too. Even the tiniest mouse belongs here, just as much as the stars." Elara's ears warmed at his words. She had always felt small in her meadow, always thought her dreams were too quiet to matter. But here, standing among petals glowing brighter than lanterns, she realized her dreams had weight. They mattered. They stopped beneath a great tree at the center of the garden. Its trunk was wide and smooth, glowing softly like ivory. Its branches stretched far, each one heavy with blossoms that pulsed faintly with light. The blossoms opened slowly, and from each one drifted a new dream, rising gently like bubbles into the sky. "This is the dream tree," Callan whispered reverently. "It is the heart of the quiet garden. Every dream comes through its branches, and every night it blossoms anew." Elara reached up on her tiny paws and touched one of the blossoms. It was warm, like a candle flame, but soft. The blossom trembled, and a small golden dream drifted into her paw before floating upward. She giggled quietly, her whiskers twitching. The fox sat down beside her, his eyes reflecting the glow. "Would you like to rest here for a while? The dream tree's roots are soft as pillows, and many travelers sleep beneath its branches when their paws grow heavy." Elara looked up at the blossoms drifting their light, and for a moment, she thought about curling up right there and drifting away. But something in her heart tugged her onward. She wanted to see more, to walk further into the castle, to discover every hush-filled secret it carried. She looked at Callan and shook her head gently. "I want to keep walking." Callan's eyes glimmered kindly. "Then the castle will show you more." He rose slowly, stretching his paws, and together they left the dream tree behind. The blossoms above swayed, singing softly, as if wishing them well on their journey. As they crossed back through the archway, Elara glanced over her shoulder. She whispered softly, "Thank you," to the garden, to the flowers, to the tree. She felt sure they heard her, because the blossoms glowed just a little brighter as she stepped out into the hushed hallway again. And with that, Elara and Callan continued deeper into the castle, where more gentle wonders waited to be discovered. Elara and Callan padded softly down another curving hallway, the air growing cooler, almost like the inside of a quiet cave where water trickled gently in the dark. The walls here were lined with lanterns that flickered not with flames, but with slow-moving words written in light. Each lantern glowed with a sentence or a phrase that drifted upward like smoke before vanishing into the ceiling. Elara tilted her head, eyes wide. "What is this place?" Callan's tail swayed slowly, brushing the velvety floor. "This is the way to the Whispering Library," he explained. "It's where every story that has ever been dreamed or told comes to rest. Some stories are read aloud to keep the dreamers company while they sleep. Some simply glow quietly in the shelves until someone needs them." They reached a tall archway, wider than any Elara had seen so far. It was carved not of stone, but of pages stacked together, their edges soft and glowing. When they stepped through, Elara gasped softly. The library stretched endlessly, or so it seemed. Shelves curved in great circles, spiraling upward until they disappeared into the starry ceiling. The shelves weren't filled with books made of paper, but of light, scrolls, tomes, and little story orbs that hovered gently, spinning slowly. The air was thick with warmth, the kind of quiet that makes every breath feel like a lullaby. From every corner came whispers, not sharp or busy, but low and soothing, as though the stories themselves were speaking in voices softer than clouds. One whispered about a fox who dreamed of sailing across the sky. Another hummed a song about a child who built a house out of feathers. Another sighed about a star who fell in love with the moon. Each whisper wove together into a hum that filled Elara's heart with comfort. At the far end of the hall, a spiral staircase wound upward, each step glowing faintly like silver. Callan gestured toward it. "At the top is the reading chamber. It's where the castle's oldest stories live. Do you want to hear one?" Elara's paws tingled. She nodded eagerly. They climbed slowly, each step soft underfoot, until they reached a small round room at the top. The chamber glowed like dawn. Cushions lay scattered across the floor, and in the center stood a lectern carved of crystal. On it rested a book that looked as though it had been made of woven dreams. Its cover shifted colors, sometimes silver, sometimes pale pink, sometimes a deep indigo like midnight skies. Callan sat down on a cushion, wrapping his tail neatly around him. "This is the Dream Chronicle," he whispered. "It holds stories that can be told only when someone new enters the castle. If you listen, it will tell you one meant for you." Elara stepped closer. The book opened slowly on its own, its pages turning with no breeze. Then, a soft voice filled the room, not booming, not grand, but tender, like a grandmother humming. "Once," the voice began, "there was a little mouse who thought her dreams were too small. She watched the stars and thought they belonged to others. She curled in her meadow and wondered if anyone would hear her heart." Elara blinked, her whiskers trembling. She realized the story was about her. But one night, the voice continued gently, she followed a glow and found a place where every dream mattered, no matter how small. And the castle whispered back to her, saying, "Your dream is as soft as a feather, but feathers make wings, and wings make flight." The words wrapped around her like a blanket. Elara felt her eyes grow heavy, though her heart grew lighter. She curled against her little blanket and listened as the story faded into silence. When the voice stopped, the room remained hushed, but the hush was filled with warmth. Callan looked at her softly. "The Chronicle knows who you are. It wanted you to remember that even the smallest dream carries weight." Elara's eyes shimmered. "Do you really think my dreams matter?" The fox's gaze glowed like a quiet star. "I don't think," he whispered gently. "I know." They stayed there for a while, listening to other whispers as the book closed itself. Soft voices filled the chamber again, telling tales of rivers that sang, mountains that dreamed, and clouds that carried secrets. Each word seemed to weave through Elara's fur, lulling her deeper into calm. After a long while, Callan rose. "There's more to see," he said softly. "The Whispering Library is endless, but there are halls still waiting for you." Together they descended the spiral staircase, their paws slow and quiet, until they reached another hallway. Here the shelves curved into arches above, and words floated down like falling snowflakes. Some of them brushed against Elara's ears and dissolved into warmth. She closed her eyes briefly, letting the words sink into her like gentle lullabies. When she opened them again, Callan was waiting, his tail flicking softly toward another set of doors at the far end of the hall. "The Dream Tower," he whispered. "It is the highest place in the castle. There, the Keeper of Dreams paints the skies with colors for morning." Elara's tiny heart stirred. She wanted to see. She wanted to climb higher. She followed Callan's steady steps as the library faded behind them. And the hush of the castle grew deeper still, promising her that more wonders were waiting above. Elara and Callan padded softly through the hush-filled corridor until they reached a tall staircase that spiraled upward into the highest tower. The air here felt different, lighter, as if it was filled with the very breath of dawn. Each step glowed beneath their paws, not harshly, but like soft lanterns lit only to guide their climb. The silence deepened as they rose, yet it wasn't empty. It was full of expectancy, like the pause before a lullaby begins. The staircase led them into a round chamber with windows so tall and wide they seemed to be made of the sky itself. Stars shimmered just outside, their light brushing across the floor in silver patches. The chamber smelled faintly of rain and fresh clouds, and in the center stood an easel taller than any tree Elara had ever seen. Before the easel stood a figure, the Keeper of Dreams. They were neither fox nor mouse nor any creature Elara had known. Their form shimmered like the shifting sky, sometimes pale like mist, sometimes glowing like sunrise, sometimes dark like midnight velvet. Their cloak seemed woven of clouds, their eyes as deep as stars, but when they looked at Elara, she felt no fear, only warmth, as though the entire night had smiled at her. "Welcome, little one," the Keeper's voice said, flowing like wind across treetops. "You've walked the halls of quiet, seen the garden of flowers, listened to the library's whispers. Now you are ready to witness how dreams are painted into morning." Elara's tiny paws pressed closer to her blanket. "You paint the skies," she whispered. The Keeper nodded, dipping a great brush into bowls of color that shimmered on the floor. One bowl glowed golden like melted sunlight, another shimmered lavender, calm as twilight, another swirled in pale pinks and sleepy blues, soft as feathers. With slow, steady strokes, the Keeper brushed across the invisible canvas of the air. As the brush moved, the stars outside shifted, and streaks of color flowed into the sky. Each stroke was gentle, unhurried, like the rocking of a cradle. The room filled with a glow so calming, Elara felt her whiskers tremble and her eyes begin to flutter. Callan sat beside her, tail curled neatly. "Every dawn is painted here first," he whispered, his voice softer than ever. "The Keeper lays out the colors while the world still sleeps. That's why morning always feels like a dream, because it is." Elara leaned closer, her heart swelling. The Keeper's strokes seemed to hum as they spread, each color singing faintly. The lavender hummed of soft rain. The golden glow whispered of warmth and light. The pale pink sighed like a child's breath in sleep. Together, the colors blended into harmony, filling the chamber with a calm so deep it sank into Elara's bones. The Keeper turned slowly, their cloak of clouds shifting. They crouched, lowering their vast form until their eyes met Elara's. "Would you like to add a stroke?" they asked. Elara blinked, her paws trembling. "Me? Yes, little dreamer. Every creature who finds the castle carries a dream in their heart. Yours deserves to shine among the morning." Callan nudged her gently with his muzzle. "Go on," he whispered. Elara stepped forward, her paws barely making sound against the glowing floor. The Keeper lowered the brush until it hovered before her. She gripped it with both tiny paws. It was heavy, but not too heavy, as if it wanted her to hold it. She dipped the tip into the bowl of soft blue, a color so calm it felt like breathing. With a small, careful motion, she brushed the air. A line of pale blue light flowed outward, curling into the sky beyond the window. It shimmered and spread, blending with the Keeper's golden stroke. Outside, the stars seemed to pause, watching her contribution. Elara's heart swelled, her nose twitching. "It worked," she whispered. The Keeper's voice was low and kind. "Every dream works, Elara. Even the smallest stroke becomes part of the morning." The brush lifted gently from her paws, returning to the Keeper's hands. They gave a nod, and then turned back to their easel, continuing their calm, unhurried painting. Elara sat down beside Callan, her blanket pulled close. Together they watched as the Keeper spread the final colors of dawn across the canvas of night. Slowly, the stars dimmed, tucking themselves back into slumber, while the sky grew softer, glowing as if it were preparing to wake. Elara's eyelids grew heavier, her breath slower. She leaned against Callan's shoulder, her little heart filled with quiet pride. For the first time, she felt that her dreams weren't too small at all, they belonged here, painted into the very sky. The Keeper's brush slowed, the last stroke laid gently across the horizon. They set the brush down, and the room grew still, hushed and glowing. The Keeper's voice flowed again, this time softer than a sigh. "The morning is ready. And so are you, little one." Elara curled tighter into her blanket, her paws tucked beneath her chin. She didn't notice when Callan's tail wrapped around her like a pillow. She only knew the air was full of warmth, the sky full of dreams, and her heart full of calm. And as the first hints of dawn glowed faintly through the glass, Elara drifted towards sleep inside the castle of quiet dreams, where every creature, big and small, was safe beneath the painted sky. Elara stirred softly, her whiskers twitching as she rested against Callan's side. The chamber of the dream tower was still glowing faintly with the last strokes of dawn, though the keeper of dreams had already faded back into the hush of the sky. The great easel now shimmered empty, as though it had given its colors to the world outside. Callan nudged her gently, his voice like the brush of a feather. "It's time to go home, little one." Elara blinked her sleepy eyes. "But I don't want to leave," she murmured, her paws clinging to her blanket. The castle had become a part of her, its gardens, its whispers, its skies. She wanted to stay forever in its quiet glow. The fox's eyes glimmered kindly. "The castle of quiet dreams always stays with you, Elara. Once you've walked its halls, its hush will live in your heart. Whenever you close your eyes, you'll find its lanterns waiting." Elara's ears twitched. "Really? Really?" Callan whispered. "And tonight, when you curl in your meadow, you'll dream more softly than ever." The great windows of the tower drifted open with a sigh. Beyond them, clouds hovered like pillows, glowing with faint ribbons of light. A path of silver mist unfurled, leading gently downward, curling like a ribbon back toward the earth. Callan stood and bowed his head to her. "Walk this path, and it will guide you home." Elara felt her tiny heart tremble. She wanted to hug him, though she wasn't sure how. Instead, she whispered, "Thank you." The fox's tail brushed against her blanket, a final gift of comfort. "Dream well, Elara. And remember, your dreams are never too small." With slow, careful steps, Elara walked onto the path of silver mist. It cradled her paws like soft wool, carrying her downward. The tower faded behind her, its glow dimming into the clouds. She passed once more over the quiet garden, where flowers still hummed, their petals bending as if to wave her farewell. She drifted above the whispering library, where words floated upward like glowing snow, each whisper promising her more stories whenever she returned. She even saw the dream tree again, blossoms opening slowly, sending dreams upward like little lanterns. The mist curled lower and lower until at last, she felt the soft brush of grass beneath her paws. She was back in her meadow, where the night still lingered gently. The stars above were fading into pale blue, and the first touches of morning stretched across the horizon, the very colors she had helped paint. Elara curled into her nest of leaves, her blanket wrapped snugly around her. She felt the hush of the castle still wrapped around her heart, soft and steady, like the quietest song. The fireflies danced faintly in the grass, and the brook whispered as though repeating the lullaby of the castle. Her eyes grew heavier and heavier, her breath slower, until at last she slipped into dreams of silver halls, glowing gardens, and skies painted with her own gentle strokes. And as she drifted deeper, the world seemed to whisper all around her, "You are safe. You are loved. You are wrapped in the quietest dreams. Tonight, and always, the castle of quiet dreams will keep you." The clouds above drifted slowly, the stars tucked themselves into sleep, and Elara, the tiniest mouse, slept soundly in her meadow, her heart warm, her dreams soft, her world